welcome back to my channel. I'm Elaine and this is part 2 on how to build a Canvas app based on the phone language. In part 1, I've demonstrated how to translate a text on demand using Microsoft Translator V2. If you missed that video, I've left it in the link above. And in this episode, we'll see how to translate the screen controls in Canvas apps based on the phone language. As usual, I've left the content timecode in the description below, so do check it out if you do not want to watch the whole video. I have here my Power Twitter app open, and what we want to do is we want to make sure that all this display, like the Twitter feed and the tweet, adding tweet and exit button over here is in the phone language. So I not just want a string display to be translated, I want to make sure that it works with the screen reader as well. So we could not do the same like what we have done in the previous episode where we use the Microsoft Translator V2 connector because that does not work automatically. To get it translated, that needs to be triggered by like a button or something. But for this one over here, I want it to be automatically translated as soon as the user opens the app. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the language function in PowerApps. Now let me show you how you can achieve this in 4 simple steps. Step number 1 is to have a global variable that captures the phone language. So what I do here is I'll come to my very first screen, which is my screen Twitter feed. And I'll go to my onVisible property and I create a global variable. In this case, it's global language. And using the PowerApps language function, I'll be able to get what is the language setup on my phone and I'll store it into this global variable, which I'll use it later in the further steps, in the next few steps to get the translation. Now, if you want to know what is in the language function, I'll show you. I'll just create a screen and I'll show you what is stored in the language function. So the language function basically returns the language text. I'll just create a table over here. Yeah, a data table. And on the items, I'll just call the languages. And here you can see it has returned the name and the code. So these are all the languages that is supported by PowerApps. So if you want to do a translation, make sure that the languages is in this list. So what is important here is the code because this is what we'll use later for the translation. The second step is to create a list of translated text for all the controls on the screen that you want the display string to be translated. To do that, you can either use SharePoint or Dataverse or Excel. In this case, I have used Excel. So I have already an Excel table created. So if you look at my table over here, you see that I have 3 different columns: the ID, language tag, and localized text. You can name the header whatever name that you want, as long as you're able to reference it back in the app. So the ID is basically the control that you want to translate, which is like your icons and your labels and your text. The language tag is the language code that is matching to the language code returned by languages, which I've shown previously in step 1. And lastly, the localized text is the translated text. And you can find this translated text either using Google Translate or whatever translation tool that you have. So for every language that you want to translate to, you have to create a line in this table. So in this case over here, I've create a text language tag for 3 different languages, a translation for English, Malay, and Chinese. So as you can see, for every ID over here, there's 3 separate lines. So it supports all 3 different languages, and I have done the translation and created the tag over here. Next thing you need to do is to create this as a table, which I've already done, and give it a table name. I've named it local language, and I'll use this later on to look up and display on the control. Now, third step is to import this Excel into PowerApps. So this is really easy. I'll just go back to my PowerApps Studio over here, and I'll just go to data. As you can see, I have already this table imported, but just for the sake of this video, I'll show you how to do it. So first I need to search for my Excel connector. If you can see, there's 2 different Excel over here. If you store it in your OneDrive, you use Excel Online Business. In my case, I have it on my local, so I'm just going to do import from Excel. So I'll click import from Excel, select the Excel file that I've created and saved just now. And once I've done that, it'll ask me to select a table. So that's why you have to create your list as a table. If not, it will not work. If you have multiple tables, make sure you select the right table. And once you click on it, just click connect. And it will create it as a data source over here. So it created as _1 because I already one existing. For this presentation, I'm just going to use the local language, not the local language _1. I'll just remove this for now. But you kind of get the idea of where I'm going with this. Now the last and final step is to make sure that the controls whose display needs to be translated and read by the screen reader is set up accordingly. So what we're going to do is we go back to the first screen over here. And on this screen here, I want 3 controls to be translated. One is my label, and then my exit icon, as well as the add tweet icon. So instead of hard coding the text on this label, I need to look up to the Excel list that I've created earlier in step 1, so that it will actually dynamically pull the text to be displayed on this label depending on the phone language. So first thing, I'll go to the text property over here. And as you can see in the text property, there you go. Instead of having hard-coded the string Twitter feed, I look up to my table, which is the local language table, and then point it back to the ID, which is gallery header text, as well as the language text, which is the global language. This is a global parameter that is storing your phone language that we set up in step 1. And it will return the translated text. And the translated text will be displayed on this label. And for labels, the screen reader will just read the text properties. So whatever that is translated and displayed here will be read by the screen reader. So next thing is the icon. So on the icon, similarly, on the accessible label icon, instead of hard coding the what you want the screen reader to read, we're actually going to look up to the table similarly and then point the ID. So make sure that the ID that you have entered here is the same as the one you have created in the Excel list, and then it will get the localized tag or the translated text, which will be read by the screen reader. And that's the same that goes for the exit icon. So you can do the same for tooltip as well, as you can see here. If you want a tooltip to be translated, you can do the same. Copy the formula, enter the ID that is referencing this icon, and then you'll get the translated text. So now that we have set this up, let's test our app to see if it works. So on my phone, I have set up the default language to Malay, and I also have turned on screen reader, so we could test if our app does translate it to Malay. By the way, if you want to know more about how to build PowerApps that can be consumed by screen reader, I've left a link to my previous video, so feel free to check it out. Now let's test our app.
Multilingual Anda tidak multilingual Twitter app membuka ellipsis. RT di micro screen Twitter feed.
So as you can see, the label here is translated to Malay now because Twitter feed is Sopan Twitter in Malay. Now let's see if the icon get translated and if the screen reader actually reads it in Malay. So we have the exit icon. Exit is called keluar in Malay. So I'll just click on it.
Keluar. Butang.
There you go.
Exit.
And for the add icon, tweet in English is also tweet in Malay. So it should read tweet.
Tweet. Butang.
So that's how you can easily get your app translated to the phone language. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned something today. For more PowerApps accessibility content, please click on the link above. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Till next time, bye!